It starts with a whisper, a forgotten photograph, a boy with a toy train, and a mystery buried in time. What if this image holds the key to something beyond the years? June 17, 1908. The date written on the back of a seemingly ordinary photograph, tucked away in the deepest recesses of the Metropolitan Archive in London. A simple image at first glance, a little boy, no more than 5 years old, clutching a toy train in his small hands. His face is innocent, his eyes wide with youthful wonder. Yet, as the light filters through the aged paper, something about this image feels different, almost as if it's speaking across the span of time, waiting to reveal a truth lost to history. Dr. Elellanar Blackwood, head curator of the Archive's Photographic Restoration Department, is no stranger to such images. Thousands of them, weathered by time, have crossed her desk over the years, each frozen in its moment, each a fragment of lives long forgotten. She has carefully restored countless photographs, painstakingly bringing them back to life with the subtle touch of her expert hands. But when this one appears on her desk, it demands her attention in a way no other photograph has before. She first notices it not by the boy's expression, but by the clarity of the photograph itself. It's a rarity, sharp, vivid, and detailed, unusually so for a photograph taken in 1908. And then, as her gaze lingers longer, she notices something in the boy's eyes. They are deep, almost knowing, as if the child's innocence has been touched by something beyond the ordinary, something far more profound than the carefree days of his youth. Her assistant, Marcus, a lanky young man with glasses perched precariously on his nose, places the photograph on her desk. "Another Edwardian piece for the collection," he remarks, his voice indifferent, almost too casual. He's brilliant with the cataloging system, but lacks the emotional depth that Elellanar reads in every photograph she touches. Elellanar doesn't reply immediately. Instead, she leans in closer, her fingers brushing the edges of the photograph with delicate precision. As she slips on her white cotton gloves, a ritual that shields the past from the oils of the present, her thoughts are already turning. The boy's sailor suit, the polished shoes, the toy train in his hands. Everything in the photograph suggests wealth and privilege. The carefully curated environment, the soft sunlight illuminating the polished wooden floor, the intricate wallpaper with its train and carriage motif, all point to a well-to-do Edwardian nursery, run with precision by nannies and housemaids. The toy train itself is exquisite, not the cheap trinkets most children of the period would have received, but a meticulously crafted miniature steam locomotive, gleaming with brass detailing. It's not just a toy, it's a treasure, a custom-made plaything, perhaps gifted by a doting father. Edmund Harrington, the photographer, had spared no expense in capturing this moment of his son's life. As Elellanar inspects the photograph more closely, she can't help but wonder, who was this boy? What became of him? The expression on his face, while appearing joyful, carries an air of seriousness that seems out of place for a child of such tender years. It's a look she's seen before in children's photographs, those who would later experience tragedy or hardship, as if they knew something the camera couldn't capture. But how could this child, so full of life in this frozen moment, have known what was to come? To uncover the truth, we must look beyond the surface. Elellanar murmurs softly, already preparing for the journey ahead, one that will take her deep into the past, unraveling a mystery that might never have been meant to be solved. If you're intrigued by this mystery, make sure to subscribe to Grave of the Shadows for more chilling investigations into the unknown. And don't forget to comment below with your thoughts on the boy in the photograph. What do you think the story behind this mysterious image is? Join us on this journey through time as we uncover the secrets that history has left behind. Dr. Elellanar Blackwood is no stranger to the world of forgotten photographs. As the head curator of the Metropolitan Archive's Photographic Restoration Department, her life has been built around reviving images that time has tried to erase. She handles each piece with reverence, knowing that behind every faded face and worn-out edge lies a story waiting to be uncovered. But this photograph, this particular image, feels different. Her reputation as a meticulous historian precedes her. When it comes to restoring old photographs, No detail escapes her trained eye. Her colleagues often joke that she can read a photograph the way one might read a book, its faded textures telling the stories of the past, its subtle signs and imperfections holding hidden meanings. And it's in these hidden signs that Elellanar finds her true calling. She's not merely a restorer of images. She's a seeker of stories. The deeper the mystery, the more fascinated she becomes. This photograph, with its vivid clarity, its sharp focus on a boy who should have been lost to time, pulls her in from the first moment she lays eyes on it. The boy's innocent smile holds something more, something elusive. As she carefully examines the image, she feels an unfamiliar flutter of curiosity, an inkling that there's something beneath the surface she isn't seeing just yet, something that might explain the peculiarities she's already observed. Marcus, her assistant, stands at a distance, flipping through the accompanying documents. His youthful energy contrasts sharply with Elellanar's quiet, methodical nature. Where he sees a simple historical relic, she sees a puzzle with pieces that don't quite fit. Edmund Harrington, the photographer, was well known, respected for his portrait work with the upper classes. His studio was a prestigious place on Bond Street, where families like the Harringtons preserved their legacy for posterity. But for all his acclaim, something about this photograph hints at a deeper, more personal connection to the past. Elellanar can't quite shake the feeling that she's stumbled upon a moment that was never meant to be captured. She puts the photograph under a magnifying glass, studying the boy's face again. At first glance, it's an image of childhood innocence. But those eyes, dark and knowing, are unnerving. There's a depth in them that suggests a life far more complicated than the one a child of his age should have lived. It's a look she's seen before, though not often, in the faces of children whose lives were marked by trauma, by loss. Was this child fated for something terrible? She ponders the boy's expression, but it isn't just his face that disturbs her. The toy train he's holding is no ordinary plaything. With its meticulously crafted brass details and unusual colors, it doesn't match the toy trains commonly found in Edwardian nurseries. Could it be that this toy had a deeper significance than she first thought? Was it just a gift from a doting father, or could it be something more, a symbol, perhaps? She thinks back to the photograph's quality. Everything in the frame, from the boy's clothes to the meticulously arranged nursery, speaks of wealth and privilege, but something about the train doesn't sit right. Could the photograph have been altered? Was this some kind of elaborate hoax? Or perhaps there was something extraordinary about the boy, something the camera captured but history has since forgotten. Her mind races as she considers the possibilities. One thing is certain. She's not just looking at a photograph anymore. She's looking at a mystery, and she's determined to uncover it. Dr. Elellanar Blackwood stares intently at the photograph again, her magnifying glass held firmly in her hand. The rest of the world falls away as she focuses on the boy at the center of the image. His small hands grip the toy train with surprising reverence, and for the first time, she notices how carefully his fingers curl around it, as if it were more than just a toy. The expression on his face, half joy, half something more serious, stops her in her tracks. It's not just the clarity of the image that captivates her. It's the look in his eyes. There's something in those eyes that feels like a glimpse into the boy's soul, as if he's seen things no child should ever see. The photo has been printed with a startling degree of detail, even by the high standards of Edwardian photography. The boy's sailor suit, a classic style for children of well-to-do families during that time, fits him perfectly. His neatly combed hair, his polished shoes, the crispness of his outfit, all convey an air of privilege and care. Yet, despite the perfect setting, the light streaming in through large windows, the delicate wallpaper adorned with patterns of trains and carriages, the rocking horse partially visible in the corner, there is an odd dissonance. The image feels too alive, too present, as though the boy is still standing there, watching her across the century that separates them. Elellanar leans closer to the photograph, her eyes narrowing as she inspects the background. The room behind the boy seems like an idealized nursery, the epitome of Edwardian elegance. The furniture is immaculate, arranged with military precision. On the right, A shelf lined with books and toys suggests a family that values both learning and leisure. To the left, a rocking horse stands frozen in motion, its painted mane almost caught in time itself. The warm glow from the sunlight that illuminates the polished wooden floor casts long shadows, adding an ethereal quality to the scene. But it is the boy himself, standing at the center of it all, that holds her attention. The photograph is a work of art. Edmund Harrington, the photographer, was known for his ability to capture not just the likeness of his subjects, but their essence. His portraits often spoke to the personal nature of the lives he depicted. It's clear he spared no expense in taking this photograph, investing in high-quality materials, precise framing, and flawless execution. The paper, heavy and thick, speaks of a level of luxury that only the wealthiest could afford. This is not a casual photograph. It's a statement. Yet there's an element in the image that Elellanar can't ignore. The toy train. At first, it seems like nothing more than a charming prop. A typical child's toy, perfect for this well-curated scene. But upon closer inspection, the train's design is unusual. The gleaming brass, the fine detail in the tiny painted numbers, and the overall craftsmanship suggest it was no ordinary toy. It's a miniature steam locomotive, exquisitely designed, but there's something about it that seems out of place. The color is a deep shade of blue, unlike any train of the era. The trim is gold, adding a certain opulence to the object, as though it were intended to be more than just a child's plaything. Elellanar runs her fingers lightly along the edge of the photograph, wondering if perhaps the boy had been gifted a rare item, a custom-designed toy made specifically for him. The detail is so exact that she begins to suspect the train might be the key to unraveling the mystery of this photograph. What child in 1908 would have a toy like this? Why would a wealthy family choose to present their son with such an unusual gift, one that stood out so sharply from the ordinary trains of the day? Her mind races as she considers the implications. The boy in the photograph, the train in his hands. There must be some connection, something beyond the superficial. Perhaps it was a symbol, a message from the father, Edmund Harrington, or perhaps from someone else altogether. Could the train be linked to the boy's future? The more she looks at it, the more it feels like an object out of place in time, as if it has a history of its own, one that Elellanar has yet to uncover. To confirm her suspicions, she reaches for her reference books, flipping through pages of early 20th century steam trains, hoping to match the toy to a real locomotive. The most obvious candidate is the famous Flying Scotsman, a renowned train that had begun service 5 years earlier in 1903. Its distinctive green livery and streamlined design made it one of the most iconic trains of the period, often featured in children's toys of the time. But as she compares the toy's design to the Flying Scotsman, she notices something troubling. The toy train is not green. It's painted a deep, rich blue, and the design features gold trim, colors that were not associated with the Flying Scotsman at all. Her search through other reference materials turns up no match. The train, it seems, is a unique creation, one that doesn't belong in 1908 or in any known historical context. It's as though it were designed for a future that hadn't yet arrived. There's a chill that begins to settle in Elellanar's chest as the pieces of the puzzle begin to shift. She's not just looking at an image from the past anymore. She's staring into the unknown. As Elellanar continues to study the photograph, she realizes that it's no longer just about the boy or his toy train. It's about uncovering the life behind the image. She begins her research into the Harrington family, hoping to find some clue that will explain the strange look in the boy's eyes and the mysterious toy train in his hands. Her first step is to learn more about Edmund Harrington, the photographer who had captured this moment. Harrington was a well-known figure in Edwardian London, famous for his portrait work with the city's elite. His studio, located on Bond Street, had been a place where the upper classes commissioned photographs to preserve their legacies. But there was something about his life, something beneath the surface, that Elellanar felt was connected to the strange image before her. As she sifts through old newspaper clippings and public records, she discovers that Edmund Harrington was not only a photographer, but a man of considerable wealth and social standing. His marriage to Margaret Penrose, the daughter of a wealthy textile merchant from Manchester, had been widely celebrated in society columns. Their union was one of artistic talent and financial security, the perfect match in an age where status and social mobility were paramount. Margaret, however, died unexpectedly in 1903, just a few years after their marriage. Her sudden death during childbirth sent shockwaves through the Harrington family, and the trauma of her loss seemed to cast a shadow over Edmund's life. The birth of their son, Thomas, had been a bittersweet event for Edmund. While Thomas was a child born out of love, the boy's early years were shaped by the absence of his mother and the growing grief of his father. Elellanar pauses as she reads more about the years that followed Margaret's death. Edmund had thrown himself into his photography business, but he was never quite the same man after his wife passed. His obsession with documenting the lives of others was perhaps a way for him to hold onto what he had lost. The year of Thomas's birth, 1903, marked a new chapter in Edmund's life, but it also marked a period of quiet tragedy. The boy was raised by nannies and governesses in the grand, well-appointed nursery, surrounded by expensive toys, fine books, and a life of comfort. But the love of a mother, as Elellanar well knew, is something that no wealth or privilege could replace. As Elellanar digs deeper, she finds a series of letters written by Edmund to his sister, discussing Thomas in the months leading up to the photograph. In one letter, dated March 1908, Edmund writes about his son's growing obsession with an imaginary friend. Thomas speaks constantly of his friend. He writes, though he plays alone, he insists his friend is real, and he often talks to him through the window at night. Elellanar pauses as she reads these words. It's not unusual for children to have imaginary friends, but the fact that Edmund mentions his son's mysterious companion in such a serious tone catches her attention. Thomas's imaginary friend, it seems, had become more than just a figment of the boy's imagination. Edmund mentions in another letter that Thomas calls his friend the conductor, a name that sends a chill through Elellanar's spine. Last night, Thomas told me that the conductor knows everything that will happen. The letter continues. He's seen it all before, Father. I'm not sure what to make of this, but I have my concerns. The letters become increasingly unsettling as Elellanar reads on. Edmund writes about Thomas's fixation on the toy train, a gift that he claims was given to him by the conductor. The more Edmund writes, the more Elellanar realizes that Thomas's world was filled with things that defy logic and reason, things that no child, especially one so young, should have known. As Elellanar reads through these documents, she is struck by the overwhelming sense of foreboding that permeates them. There is a growing sense that something terrible is about to happen, something that would irrevocably change the course of Thomas's life. In the months following these letters, Edmund's obsession with his son's strange behavior deepens. He begins to shut himself off from the world, pouring all of his energy into searching for answers. But no one can explain why Thomas claims to have seen the conductor or why the boy's toy train seems to hold such significance. Elellanar leans back in her chair, her mind racing. The photograph, the boy's strange expression, and now these letters. All of it suggests that Thomas Harrington was no ordinary child. His connection to something beyond the physical world, something supernatural, is becoming clearer by the day. But the most unsettling part of the investigation comes when Elellanar discovers that Thomas vanished without a trace in 1909. The mystery of his disappearance, which had been well documented in the newspapers, only adds to the growing sense of dread that Elellanar feels. The disappearance of Thomas Harrington is not just a missing persons case. It's a story that seems to transcend time itself. Elellanar has uncovered the first pieces of a puzzle that, as she's beginning to realize, may never be fully solved. As Elellanar continues her examination of the photograph, her attention is drawn once again to the toy train the boy clutches so carefully in his small hands. By now, the boy's expression, half joy, half something deeper, has become a focal point of her investigation, but the train, that exquisite piece of craftsmanship, refuses to let her go. It seems to hold the key to understanding what lies beneath the surface of this seemingly ordinary photograph. Up until now, Elellanar had been focused on the boy's gaze, the eerie way his eyes seemed to pierce through time. But the more she looks at the train, the more she realizes it is no ordinary plaything. The clarity of the image, so sharp it almost feels as if the boy could step out of the frame, reveals every intricate detail of the train with startling precision. The brass work gleams in the soft light, and the tiny painted numbers on the side of the locomotive seem almost to pulse with life. But it's not just the craftsmanship that draws her in, it's the design. The train, an exquisite miniature steam locomotive, seems to combine elements of trains from different eras, a curious mishmash of features that shouldn't belong in a toy from 1908. The body of the train is streamlined, the kind of design that wasn't commonly seen in models of the time. There are features that suggest influences from future technologies, elements that wouldn't appear in trains until decades later. The cowcatcher, for instance, is unlike anything she's seen in early 20th century locomotives. It's distinctly American in design, with a bold, aggressive curve that feels out of place among the more utilitarian British designs of the period. But it's the color that truly sets the train apart. Elellanar had assumed at first that it was a model of the Flying Scotsman, that iconic British locomotive. After all, the boys' room, with its train-patterned wallpaper, seemed like the perfect setting for such a beloved toy. However, as she examines the train closer, she notices something shocking. The toy is not the familiar green of the Flying Scotsman. It's a deep, almost impossible shade of blue, trimmed with gold. The combination is striking, almost otherworldly, and it doesn't match any train she knows from the early 20th century. Her mind races. Could the train have been specially commissioned? It would make sense. Wealthy families often had custom-made items for their children, but this was something entirely different. There's a uniqueness to it that feels almost deliberate, as though someone wanted to create something that didn't belong in its time. But why? Driven by a growing sense of urgency, Elellanar begins to consult reference books and online archives, searching for any trace of this unusual design. She pores over photographs of early steam locomotives, hoping to find a match. The Flying Scotsman comes up again, but the more she looks, the more certain she becomes that this isn't just a coincidence. The design doesn't match. There are features in the toy train that aren't part of any locomotive she's found from the time period, not even the famous trains of the early 1900s. She begins to widen her search. Could it be a prototype, a limited edition model? Perhaps, but the craftsmanship suggests it was designed with a different purpose in mind, something far beyond the world of children's toys. What if the train wasn't just a toy at all? What if it was a clue, a piece of evidence left for her to find? As the days pass, Elellanar becomes increasingly fixated on the toy train. She spends hours examining the photograph, zooming in on the smallest details, convinced that the train holds the key to unraveling the mystery of Thomas Harrington's life and his disappearance. There is something about the toy, something hidden beneath the surface, that she has yet to uncover. To gain further insight, she contacts several experts in early 20th century trains, hoping to find someone who can offer an explanation for the toy's peculiarities. One such expert is Dr. Jonathan Wells, a senior historian at the Railway Museum in York. Elellanar sends him a high-resolution scan of the photograph, asking him to examine the toy train closely. His response comes hours later. "Most intriguing," he writes, "this doesn't match any commercial model from the period. The design elements are unusual, almost as if it combines features from different eras. The cowcatcher at the front is distinctly American, while the boiler configuration is more characteristic of British designs. But the streamlined casing around the driving wheels wouldn't appear in locomotive design until the 1930s at the earliest, and I've never seen that particular color scheme in any production model." Elellanar feels a chill run down her spine. The train doesn't just seem out of place, it seems to exist in a timeline that doesn't make sense. The more she thinks about it, the more she realizes that this toy train is at the heart of the mystery she's been chasing. But what does it mean? Could the train be a symbol, a talisman, or something more? Could it be tied to time itself, a key to something Elellanar hasn't yet grasped? As the days go by, Elellanar digs deeper. She consults railway archives, speaks with collectors of antique trains, and visits museums across the country, all the while looking for any trace of this strange toy train. Every lead she follows turns cold, and the deeper she goes, the more elusive the answer becomes. One evening, as she sifts through a collection of old railway blueprints, Elellanar stumbles upon something that causes her heart to skip a beat. It's a blueprint for a locomotive design, dated 1932. The design is strikingly similar to the toy train in the photograph, a blue and gold steam locomotive that shouldn't have existed in 1908. The realization hits her like a bolt of lightning. The toy train is not just a clue to the boy's past. It's a clue to something far more profound, something that might just change the way she views history itself. As the days pass, Elellanar becomes more obsessed with the photograph and the strange toy train. The initial intrigue she felt when the photograph first landed on her desk has transformed into something far deeper. A need to understand, to uncover the truth that lies hidden in the shadows of time. But the more she delves into the history of the boy and his toy, the more the answers seem to slip further from her grasp. Determined to find a definitive explanation, Elellanar begins her search for historical records that might provide some context to the toy train. She's already contacted experts in early 20th century trains, but the more she learns, the more she feels that there's something bigger at play, something beyond the train itself. The first place she turns to is the British Railway Museum. As the oldest and most comprehensive collection of railway artifacts in the world, it holds a wealth of information on trains from every era. Elellanar arranges to visit the museum and consult their archives. She spends hours poring over blueprints, photographs, and documentation from the early 1900s. But nothing she finds matches the strange features of the toy train in the photograph. The streamlined design, the unusual color scheme, and the strange cowcatcher. It all seems too futuristic for a toy from 1908. Frustrated, but unwilling to give up, Elellanar shifts her focus to the Harrington family's records. She reaches out to several local archives in London, hoping to uncover any additional documents related to Edmund Harrington and his family. After weeks of research, she uncovers a series of letters and newspaper clippings that begin to shed light on the family's background. One particularly intriguing letter, dated May 1908, is addressed to a well-known railway engineer named Lord William Penrose. Penrose, Elellanar learns, was a renowned inventor and a member of the British aristocracy, known for his work on experimental train designs. The letter, written by Edmund Harrington, speaks of a possible collaboration between the two men, discussing the design of a new type of locomotive. The more Elellanar reads, the more she begins to wonder, could the toy train be linked to Penrose's experimental designs? Did Edmund Harrington, a well-respected photographer, have ties to the world of innovation and technological advancements in trains? Was it possible that the train in the photograph wasn't just a toy, but a prototype, something far more significant than a simple plaything? Eager to find out more, Elellanar contacts Dr. Jonathan Wells once again, this time asking him to look into any connections between Edmund Harrington and Lord William Penrose. Dr. Wells's reply comes swiftly, filled with both curiosity and concern. It's an interesting connection, he writes, but Penrose was known for his experimental designs, particularly in the field of timekeeping mechanisms and railway automation. It's possible that Harrington, being a man of means, could have commissioned something special, but there's no record of such a collaboration. This revelation sends Elellanar into another deep dive, this time into the life of Lord Penrose. She discovers that, in addition to his work in railway innovation, Penrose was also rumored to have been involved in time-related experiments, specifically experiments that sought to bend or manipulate time itself. There are vague references to temporal displacement in the obscure academic papers he published, but none of his work had ever been fully accepted by the scientific community. The more Elellanar reads, the more she becomes convinced that Lord Penrose's work may have been far more than just theoretical. Could the toy train, this strange anomaly from 1908, somehow be linked to his secret experiments? Determined to explore this further, Elellanar reaches out to the British Library, where she consults several cryptic diaries and letters from prominent figures in the early 20th century. In one particularly strange document dated 1910, she finds an entry from Penrose himself, in which he alludes to a future invention, a machine that could move not just through space but through time. What if, he writes, we could design a vehicle not bound by the laws of time, a vehicle that could transcend the limits of history and carry us to destinations both past and future. The implications of this discovery send a chill through Elellanar. Is it possible that Lord Penrose's experiments with time travel were more than just theory? Could the toy train, the same toy in the photograph, have been part of a larger, more dangerous experiment? Was the boy, Thomas Harrington, somehow caught in the middle of something that he could not have possibly understood? As Elellanar digs deeper into Penrose's work, she uncovers more disturbing information. A series of newspaper articles from 1912 chronicles Penrose's sudden disappearance. According to these reports, Penrose vanished without a trace, leaving behind a wealth of experimental documents that were never fully explained. Some claim he was working on a secret project that had something to do with revolutionizing travel. But the details are murky. Could it be that Thomas, the boy in the photograph, was unknowingly part of Penrose's experiments? With the pieces of the puzzle slowly beginning to fit together, Elellanar feels the weight of the mystery pressing on her shoulders. The toy train, the unusual color scheme, the connection to Lord Penrose. Everything now points to the possibility of something far more dangerous than a simple photograph. There's a link between the past, present, and future, and Thomas Harrington, the boy with the toy train, is at the heart of it all. As Elellanar continues to scrutinize the photograph, she begins to notice something strange, something that had eluded her during her initial examination. The boy, Thomas, is still the focus of her attention. His innocent smile and unsettling gaze are hard to ignore, but as she inspects the image more closely, a feeling of unease begins to settle in the pit of her stomach. The boy stands in the center of the nursery, his toy train clutched tightly in his hands. But it's not the boy that now draws her attention. It's the window in the background, the large Victorian window through which the soft light pours into the room. The window, once a minor detail, now feels ominous. Elellanar zooms in, adjusting the resolution on her computer screen to its maximum level. First, nothing seems out of place. The sunlight streaming through the glass casts gentle shadows on the polished wooden floor, and the curtains tied back with tassels gently flutter in the breeze. But then, as she zooms in further, her breath catches. There, in the reflection of the glass, is something that shouldn't be there. It's a figure, a tall, thin shape standing just behind the photographer. The figure is indistinct at first, its proportions wrong, its form stretched and unnatural. Elellanar freezes, her hand trembling as she adjusts the magnification. The figure appears to be towering over the boy, casting a long, strange shadow on the wall. But what's most unsettling is the way it seems to distort, as though it is not fully present in the photograph. It's as if the figure is out of sync with the rest of the image, existing just outside the normal plane of reality. Her mind races, the eerie sense that she's stumbled onto something far darker than she first imagined growing stronger by the second. She'd seen distortions in photographs before, smudges, light reflections, and lens flare. But this was different. The figure looks too real, too solid, even though it shouldn't be there. Could it be a photographic anomaly? Elellanar murmurs to herself. A reflection of the photographer Edmund Harrington, perhaps? A trick of the light or a shadow cast by the flash? She leans in closer to the screen, eyes narrowed in concentration, but the figure remains. Its proportions are wrong, too tall, its limbs unnaturally thin, and its head strangely shaped. As she continues to analyze the reflection, a chill runs through her spine. This isn't just a shadow. It's something else entirely. The longer she stares at the reflection, the more details begin to emerge. The figure is standing behind Edmund Harrington, but it doesn't seem to belong in the scene. It doesn't belong in the world of the photograph. There's something deeply unsettling about it, something that makes her question what she's seeing. Is it possible that this figure was meant to be in the photograph? Or has it somehow slipped into the image, a presence from another time or dimension, forever captured in the glass? Elellanar glances back at the boy, Thomas, and her breath catches in her throat. In his eyes, she sees a flicker of recognition, a flicker of something that suggests he sees it too. The boy is staring at the window, but it's not just the sunlight or the nursery behind him that holds his attention. It's the shadowy figure reflected in the glass. His eyes seem to be following its movements, his small hands tightening around the toy train in his grasp. It's as though the figure is not just an image, it's a presence. And Thomas knows it. A sudden thought strikes Elellanar. Could the boy have been aware of this figure? Was it possible that the shadowy figure had been standing in the room at the time the photograph was taken? Or was it a distortion, a ghostly presence captured on film, something that should not have been there but was? Her hands trembling, Elellanar zooms out and examines the entire photograph again, taking in the full composition. Everything about it seems so carefully arranged, from the meticulously placed toys to the carefully chosen background. Yet the figure in the reflection stands in stark contrast to the rest of the image. It feels like an intrusion, something that doesn't belong in the carefully constructed world of this photograph. But it's not just the reflection in the window that disturbs Elellanar. As she continues her analysis, she notices something even stranger. The figure isn't alone. Standing beside it, almost hidden in the shadows, is another shape, tall and indistinct, its proportions wrong in a way that makes Elellanar's heart race. She takes a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves. Could it be a second figure? A person who had been standing in the room but was somehow left out of the frame? Or is this something far more sinister, something supernatural? The idea that this could be a ghost or a manifestation from another time begins to settle heavily on Elellanar's mind. The figure's proportions don't match any human form she's ever seen. It's as though it's not from this reality, like a shadow that should not be there, standing just outside of time. Elellanar sits back in her chair, staring at the reflection in the window, her mind racing. She's no longer just dealing with a historical photograph. She's looking at something else entirely, something that has slipped through the cracks of time, leaving its mark on this image. The photograph no longer seems like an innocent relic from the past. It has become a window, a portal, into something far more mysterious and dark than she could have ever imagined. As the days stretch into weeks, Elellanar finds herself immersed in a whirlwind of research, theory, and analysis. The more she uncovers, the more elusive the truth seems. The photograph, once a simple, albeit fascinating, relic, has transformed into an enigma that refuses to be solved. The toy train, the figure in the window, the boy's unsettling expression. Each detail pulls her deeper into a web of uncertainty. But it's in the quiet moments, when Elellanar is left alone with the photograph, that the key to unlocking the mystery finally presents itself. One evening, as the archive grows dark around her and the hum of the climate control system becomes a distant murmur, Elellanar sits back in her chair, her eyes fixed on the photograph. The dim light from her desk lamp casts soft shadows across the room, and for a moment, she allows herself to simply look, to let the image wash over her once more. It's then that the crucial detail appears. Elellanar has been focusing so intently on the boy, the train, and the strange reflection in the window that she's neglected to pay attention to the more subtle elements in the background. As she gazes at the nursery once again, something catches her eye. A small detail, almost invisible, tucked away near the corner of the photograph. It's a small, seemingly insignificant object, barely noticeable in the chaotic bustle of the room. But it's there nonetheless. Pocket watch. It hangs from a chain around the boy's neck. At first, Elellanar dismisses it as just another element in the photograph. A trinket, a personal item, something added to complete the portrait of privilege and wealth. But then, as she zooms in closer, a sense of foreboding settles over her. The watch is not something a child of his age would typically wear. In fact, pocket watches were reserved for young men, given as a mark of coming of age. An heirloom, a gift to mark a milestone in a boy's life. Yet this child, no older than 5 or 6, wears one around his neck like a talisman. And it's not just the presence of the watch that unnerves her. It's the details she begins to notice upon closer inspection. The watch is old, worn, and slightly tarnished, its chain showing signs of frequent use. But what really stands out is the engraving on the back. Elellanar's hands tremble as she carefully adjusts the resolution on her computer. The watch's back is difficult to make out with the naked eye, but with her expertise, she begins to discern the faintest etching. Slowly, the letters come into focus, To Th, from WP 1932. Her heart skips a beat. The initials TH can only stand for one person, Thomas Harrington. And the initials WP are unmistakable, William Penrose, the man whose work Elellanar had been researching for weeks. The year 1932 sends a shock through her spine. How could a pocket watch from the future be in the possession of a child in 1908? This discovery shakes Elellanar to her core. It's as though a veil has been lifted from the image, revealing a deeper, more unsettling truth. This boy, Thomas Harrington, wasn't just a child caught in an odd historical photograph. He was somehow connected to a future he couldn't possibly know, a future where William Penrose was still alive, and his experiments with time travel were far from over. The connection between the toy train, the boy, and the pocket watch begins to take shape in Elellanar's mind. She sees now that the toy train, with its futuristic design, was more than just a gift. It was a symbol of something much larger, something far beyond the simple boundaries of time. The boy's connection to Penrose, who had experimented with time manipulation, becomes clearer. The toy train, she realizes, might not be just a train. It could be a time machine, a key to unlocking the mysteries of time itself. But there's more. The reflection in the window, the shadowy figure standing behind the photographer, takes on new significance. Elellanar now wonders, was this figure part of Penrose's experiment? Was it a manifestation of something not bound by time, a guardian of the time-traveling device that the toy train represented? Or perhaps it was something more sinister, a being from another dimension, a creature that exists outside the normal flow of history, waiting for its moment to act. As Elellanar stares at the photograph, she feels a sense of dread settle over her. The pieces of the puzzle are coming together, but they form a picture she's not sure she can fully comprehend. The boy, the toy train, the pocket watch, it's all tied together in a way that defies the natural order of time and space. Her mind races as she pieces together the implications of her discovery. The boy, Thomas Harrington, was no ordinary child. He had somehow become a part of an experiment that defied the laws of time, a subject caught in a web of temporal displacement. And as for the toy train, it was no mere plaything. It was a link to a future that had not yet arrived, a key to unlocking the very fabric of time itself. Elellanar knows she can't stop here. She has to dig deeper, follow this trail wherever it leads. She reaches for her phone, her fingers trembling as she contacts Dr. Jonathan Wells, her most trusted ally in this strange investigation. The mystery of Thomas Harrington, the boy with the toy train, has only just begun to unfold, and Elellanar is determined to follow the thread, wherever it may lead. The discovery of the pocket watch, the engraved initials, and the year 1932 hits Elellanar like a thunderclap. The more she thinks about it, the more impossible it seems. How could an object from the future be in the hands of a child in 1908? The photograph of Thomas Harrington, once just a historical curiosity, now seems to hold the keys to something far darker and more dangerous than she ever anticipated. She begins to suspect that she is no longer just investigating a historical artifact. She's involved in something far more profound, a mystery that stretches across the fabric of time itself. The pieces of the puzzle are coming together in a way that both excites and terrifies her. The boy, the toy train, the pocket watch, it all points toward one undeniable conclusion. Thomas Harrington was somehow involved in time travel. But how? And why was he chosen? Was he a subject in an experiment? Or had he stumbled upon something that was never meant to be discovered? As Elellanar sits in her office, staring at the photograph of Thomas and the toy train, her mind races with possibilities. Could the toy train actually be a time machine? Could it have been designed not to move across distances, but to move through time itself? She flips through her notes again, rereading the information she has collected about Lord Penrose and his experimental work in the field of time manipulation. The connections between the toy train, the boy, and Penrose's work are becoming too clear to ignore. Penrose's obsession with creating a machine that could travel through time was well documented, but there was no evidence to suggest that his work was ever completed until now. But as she reflects on her findings, Elellanar is struck by an unsettling thought. Could Thomas have been part of an experiment gone wrong? Was he somehow transported into a time that wasn't his own? The toy train, she believes, was no mere toy. It was a vessel, a mechanism designed to traverse time, linking the past with an uncertain future. But what happened to Thomas? Did he disappear because of the experiment? Or had something gone wrong with the very fabric of time itself? Her mind spins with the possibilities, but before she can delve further into these theories, her phone buzzes with an incoming message. It's from Dr. Jonathan Wells. She opens it immediately. Elellanar. The message reads, "I've uncovered something strange in the historical records. There's mention of a project, codenamed Project Temporal Echo. It's linked to a mysterious figure named Dr. Elellanar Blackwood, a name I think you'll recognize. You might want to take a look at this." Her blood runs cold as she stares at the screen. Dr. Elellanar Blackwood. The name resonates in her mind, but she can't place it. She taps on the attachment Dr. Wells sent, and the document opens up in front of her. It's a confidential government report from 1930, outlining an experimental program for time travel. The document is filled with technical jargon, theories about temporal displacement, and diagrams of what appear to be early prototypes for time machines. But what catches her attention is a single line buried deep in the report. Dr. Elellanar Blackwood, head of Project Temporal Echo, has successfully achieved temporal displacement using a child subject as the first test case. The child, referred to as Thomas Harrington, was transported forward in time, where he will remain until further analysis. Elellanar's heart races as the words sink in. Thomas Harrington, the boy from the photograph, had been part of an experiment with time travel, and the person behind it all was someone with the same last name as hers, Elellanar Blackwood. She stumbles back in her chair, her mind racing to process the information. How could this be possible? She has never heard of Dr. Elellanar Blackwood before, and yet, his name is tied to the very mystery she's investigating. Was this just a coincidence? Or is there something more, something darker, linking her to this investigation? The document goes on to describe the results of Project Temporal Echo, a highly classified, top-secret initiative designed to explore the possibility of time travel. According to the report, the project was led by a man named Dr. Elellanar Blackwood, who had a personal interest in experimenting with the displacement of human subjects through time. The report mentions that the first test case involved a young boy, Thomas Harrington, who was sent forward in time to 1932, the same year the pocket watch had been engraved. The purpose of the experiment was to observe how the boy would adapt to the future, but the results were catastrophic. The boy vanished from all known records, and the project was shut down after a series of unexplained anomalies. This revelation hits Elellanar like a blow. Thomas Harrington had been sent forward in time, and now he was lost. The toy train, the pocket watch, everything now fits together in a way that suggests Thomas was never just a victim of fate. He was part of an experiment gone terribly wrong, and the toy train might have been the vehicle that carried him through time, leaving him trapped in a future that wasn't his own. But the biggest question still remains. Where is Thomas now? Was he truly lost in time? Or is there something more to this mystery that hasn't yet been uncovered? The more Elellanar thinks about it, the more she realizes that the investigation is far from over. In fact, it may be just beginning. As she prepares to dive even deeper into the mystery, one thing becomes painfully clear. Thomas Harrington's story is not just a part of history. It's a story that transcends time itself. The discovery of Project Temporal Echo and the shocking revelation about Thomas Harrington's involvement in a time travel experiment sends a shockwave through Elellanar. The pieces of the mystery, once scattered and enigmatic, are now beginning to fit together in a way that defies logic, time, and reality itself. She stares at the documents before her, her fingers trembling as they hover over the page. Thomas, the boy in the photograph, was not just a subject of historical curiosity. He was a traveler of time, a lost child cast adrift between eras. Her thoughts race as she tries to grasp the enormity of the situation. Time travel, an idea once confined to the realm of science fiction, was real. It had been attempted in secret, and the consequences of those experiments had left a mark on history. The toy train, the pocket watch, and the mysterious figures in the photograph were not just artifacts of the past. They were relics of a future that hadn't yet arrived, objects caught in a temporal web, forever tethered to a boy who had vanished from time. The more she studies the documents, the more certain she becomes. Thomas Harrington wasn't just part of an experiment. He was its unintended victim. The report from Project Temporal Echo reveals that the boy had been sent forward in time, an experiment meant to observe how the child would react to a future he could never have imagined. But something had gone wrong. The boy had disappeared from all known records, and the project was abruptly shut down. Elellanar feels a chill crawl up her spine as she connects the dots. The toy train, the one the boy had clutched so carefully in the photograph, was the device that transported him through time. It wasn't just a simple child's toy. It was the key to his displacement. Somehow, someway, the train had been designed to move not just through space but through time itself. The more she thinks about it, the more it makes sense. The train's unusual design, its strange color scheme, the details that didn't belong in 1908, all of it pointed to one thing. The train was more than just a toy. It was a time machine. Elellanar pushes her chair back, standing up to pace the room. Her mind is buzzing, overwhelmed by the implications of what she's uncovered. The boy, Thomas, had somehow been sent to the future, his body displaced through time. And what's more, it seems that the boy had known about his fate. The look in his eyes, the way he stared at the reflection in the window of the photograph, suddenly makes sense. He wasn't just looking at a shadowy figure, he was looking at himself, or perhaps the future version of himself. The figure in the window, the tall, thin shape that had so unnerved Elellanar, wasn't just an anomaly. It was a glimpse into another time. The photograph now feels more like a map, a visual record of a child caught in the crosshairs of an experiment gone awry. It was as if the photograph itself had been taken not just to capture a moment in history, but to trap that moment, to freeze the boy in time, never allowing him to escape. But why? Why had Thomas been chosen as the subject of this experiment? And what was the significance of the toy train? As she sits back down at her desk, Elellanar takes a deep breath. There's still so much she doesn't understand. She needs more answers. She needs to know where Thomas went, and whether he's still lost in time, somewhere between the past and the future. Elellanar begins to review the documents again, this time focusing on the timeline of Project Temporal Echo. The project had been designed to explore the possibility of time manipulation using human subjects, but the experiment was terminated when Thomas disappeared. However, the records suggest that the project had continued in secret, with several failed attempts to recreate the original experiment. The toy train had been the key to the experiment's success, but it had also been the cause of its failure. The boy had been lost, and with him, the project had been abandoned. But Elellanar isn't ready to let it go. She's driven by a need to understand, to uncover the truth about what happened to Thomas. Could he still be out there, somewhere, existing in another time? Or had the experiment been a one-way trip? And if Thomas had been displaced through time, could he ever return? Was it possible for him to be brought back to the present? Her mind begins to form a theory, one that sends a cold shiver through her body. What if the boy's disappearance wasn't a mistake? What if it was part of a larger plan, one that involved not just observing time but manipulating it? Could Thomas have been deliberately sent forward in time to change the course of history itself? Could he have been a pawn in a much larger game, one that Elellanar is only now beginning to understand? Elellanar takes a deep breath. The answers are out there, hidden in the tangled web of time that she has just begun to unravel. She knows that this investigation is far from over. In fact, it's only just begun. As Elellanar closes the last of the files, her mind still spins with the knowledge she has uncovered. The photograph of Thomas Harrington, the toy train, the mysterious figures in the window, it all ties together in a web that spans time itself. She's no longer just looking at an old photograph. She's looking at a relic of something far greater, something beyond her understanding. The lines between the past, present, and future are blurred, and Elellanar can't help but feel like she's caught in the middle of something much larger than she had ever imagined. The toy train had been the key to everything, the object that tied the boy to time itself. It had carried Thomas through the fabric of history, taking him from the past to an uncertain future. And the pocket watch, engraved with the initials of William Penrose, had sealed the connection to that future. But now, with no clear answers, Elellanar is left with more questions than ever before. What happened to Thomas? Was he truly lost in time, or is he still somewhere out there waiting to be found? The record suggests that Project Temporal Echo was shut down after the boy's disappearance, but there's no telling what kind of repercussions such experiments could have had on the timeline itself. Was Thomas's disappearance part of a greater plan, a calculated move in a much larger game? Elellanar can't shake the feeling that there's more to this story than what she's uncovered so far. The more she thinks about it, the more certain she becomes. Thomas Harrington's story is not just a historical mystery. It's a mystery that transcends history. He is a boy caught between time, a child lost in a world that doesn't belong to him. The toy train, the watch, the figures in the window, they are all pieces of a puzzle that, when put together, suggest a far greater power at work. But Elellanar knows that the answers may never come. The mysteries of time travel are ancient and complex, and perhaps some questions are meant to remain unanswered. She can't shake the thought that this investigation is only the beginning, that there's more out there, waiting to be discovered. As she stares at the photograph one last time, she knows she has done all she can to uncover the truth. The boy, the train, and the secrets of the past have left their mark on her. But the final journey, whatever it may be, remains just out of reach, hovering in the distance like a distant dream. With a heavy heart, Elellanar stands up and carefully places the photograph back in its folder. She knows she has uncovered something extraordinary, but she also knows that some mysteries, especially those tied to time, can never truly be solved. As the lights in the archive flicker off and Elellanar walks out of the room, the photograph of Thomas Harrington lingers in her mind. His smile, his eyes, the toy train he held so tightly, they will stay with her, a reminder of the line that divides the past from the future and the timelessness of the mystery that connects them. The final journey of Thomas Harrington may have been lost in time, but for Elellanar, the investigation is far from over. The secrets of the past, the present, and the future remain tangled, and the boy with the toy train is just the beginning.